A very good morning to everyone. So here am very much excited to talk about this application of DSP for an astrofield. So you may be surprised or maybe with a question mark symbol in your mind, what is this astrofield I'm going to talk about? So let me start with the basics. All of you are aware of stars. You might have seen stars from your childhood. Now there are variations in these stars, maybe a twinkling star, a non-twinkling star. Like that you can find too many variations, and that too in different colors. And now coming to the life cycle of a star, I can just brief out in one single diagram where this particular star scientifically burns hydrogen and helium, and that is what is resulting it to glow, and we are able to see that glow in the form of a star. But of course not all twinkling stars or non twinkling stars we consider it as stars, because in general any light we see in the sky we may be assigning it to be a star, but in reality only the one which is twinkling is actually a star. The non-twinkling ones are the reflections of planets or any other elements in the space. Now coming back to the life cycle of a star, as I already told you, star is nothing but it is burning hydrogen and helium and producing energy, and a light is getting induced over there. So this light illumination, whatever we are able to see, that would be in very different forms. So it depends upon the mass of the star or the mass of the hydrogen or the helium existing in that particular element. Now if I have to explain you about star life cycle in brief, here you can just look at the diagram, and if you will be able to find out if the mass is in an average size, then the more and more combustion happens, more and more hydrogen and helium are burnt, then that star would become a red giant star, and we will be able to see in the reddish color, like how a normal anything you burn, you will see it in the form of a flame of reddish or orangish colors. So in the same way, here we will find a red giant star. And once this hydrogen and helium mass gets reduced after certain amount of combustion is done, then what happens, it comes into a condition of that bursting out of nebula elements will happen, so to the outer layers. So a huge mass will blow up or burst out. It is something like our atom bombs blowing. Even that is the hydrogen bomb which we always take in the Diwali festivals and all. There it is very minimal amount of hydrogen, but here it is tons and tons of hydrogen and helium which is getting burned. So if a small bomb itself is blasting out so many materials, you can imagine how does a star blast out its outer layer and produce so many elements. Now those mass elements in the form of clouds will get separated around in the area, and they may form asteroid belts or they may form planets whatsoever, depending upon the process and the scenarios what it is coming up with. Now I am not concentrated on that. If in case, forget about the bursting out and the particles getting exploded outside, what is inside left out? Now inside still the combustion is happening, but it is with minimal mass, so it won't look now like red or orangish color, it would look in the form of a white color. It is same as our sun what we are seeing. So sun is in the white dwarf stage at current. So it has finished all these processes and it has reached our white dwarf stage. If the mass is not an average or minimal mass, if you say, then you can just look to the other side of the life cycle where it is a very massive star, and then the combustion will not become a normal red giant, it will become a super giant combustion. So a big red giant star will be formed, and this goes to the stage of supernova where it will be pulsing signals. Here is the major conversion happens, a major turning point to the star. If the mass is very huge, then it becomes a black hole. Hope all of you know about the black holes, but you may not be knowing about neutron star. We know about white dwarf because it is our own sun, what we are seeing every day in and day out. We know about black holes because we have heard of it. But in between these two, if the mass is not less to become a white star and the mass is not more to become a black hole, then in between it will be in some stage said to be a neutron star. What happens to this particular star is, as I already told you, it is neither a white dwarf nor a black hole, so this will spin and it will pulses the potential or energy for every rotation, and this is what we are going to study today. So when it is spinning in the space and it is pulsating signals, we are trying to acquire these pulsating signals of the neutron star, and we try to study the space itself depending upon what we received from the space. See, because we are completely unaware of what is there in space and what is happening in that, but once we get some, like how you people will talk about if somebody has attempted for an exam, say some aptitude exams for the placement, or it could be a gate exams, the moment he is out of the exam hall, you will try to find out how was the paper. So even though you didn't go and attend the exam, you are trying to get the information about the exam for the from the person who passed through it. So same way here, this neutron star signals are passing from the space and it is reaching earth. So we will try to understand what is there in the space by analyzing whatever the signal we are receiving from the neutron star. That is what we will be studying in today's session. So as I told you, here is just a summary about the star, what I was talking. If the mass is less, it would become a white dwarf. If the mass is more, it would become a black hole. But in between mass is what we are talking, which is a neutron star. And this neutron star will be pulsating signals. Now, these are the radio pulses which are being pulsated, and it will spin at whatever the speed. It depends upon the mass and other parameters. So we will just demonstrate about this pulsating pulsar star with this kind of structure. And now here is the diagram what I am showing you. How does the dispersion happen? Dispersion is nothing but, you might have seen about the dispersion of a signal into rainbow colors when you place a prism and all in the physics laboratory. Same way, the dispersion of this radio signals of the pulsar will happen in the space for long light years, that to thousands of light years, and then it would reach the earth. Now, at earth, of course, I cannot capture all the signals. I will try to capture whatever is possible to me. Say for example, even our ears, it has a bandwidth. It can hear only certain signals. Not less than that it would be able to hear, not more than that it would be able to hear. Similarly, we will try to capture some signals of this pulsars with whatever the receiving antennas we design for that particular bandwidth. Of course, this pulsar will produce signals in a wide range of bandwidth, but in that wide range, we will be acquiring signals whatever is feasible for us to acquire. And then once I acquire it, remember, the distortion for a low frequency signal is high, whereas for a high frequency signal the distortion acquired is less. Because the frequency is high, it will move away fast, so it doesn't experience that much of dispersion, whereas the low frequency signals will experience more dispersion when it is passing through that space before it reaches the earth. Now, you people might have heard about something called as transfer function in control systems and all, and even in signals. Now, we will develop a inverse transfer function of this particular space based on these kind of parameters, and then we will apply the inverse of the transfer function to the acquired signal. See what is happening here. I told you this is the pulsar, it is pulsating signals. So when it is spinning, whatever signals are produced, it is reaching our earth, and at earth I have some antennas placed, and the antennas would receive and record the signals, and during this process there is a dispersion happening, is what I just explained to you people. Now I want to remove the dispersion whatever has happened in the space. How do I remove that dispersion? For that I should know how was the dispersion process happening. So that is nothing but the model of the space we develop as a transfer function, and then we will implement the inverse to the acquired signal, which will in turn give me the actual produced pulsar signal. That is the definition of de-dispersion of our pulsar signal. So this is what I will be talking now. So as I told you, we have some band what we have chosen, the frequency band. In that particular band is what the recording has happened. The lower frequencies have got the higher dispersion. Higher frequencies have experienced lower dispersion. Of accordingly we have defined the dispersion measures. So here I have two types of dispersion. See, either because of the dispersion, the low frequency people or the low frequency signals will receive later, whereas higher frequency signals will receive early. Means there is a time delay in respect to the signals based on their frequencies. Now what do? I will just align them together. Whoever came first, let them stay there. Whoever came late, also I will make them stand behind the person who has come earlier. So you can just check this diagram, whatever I am showing. Here is the spectrum. Spectrum is nothing but a presentation of the signal with respect to time versus frequency. So if you can check here, the higher frequency has received earlier, has reached early, whereas the lower frequency component has reached late. Now what do? I will split this into different channels and I will calculate how much ever was the delay and I will send this delayed people back. So when I align them, I will be able to see all the frequencies together as it is pulsated. But this is just visualizing, means we are cheating and we are able to see. It is something like we will give attendance even to the latecomers. Though the latecomers came after 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, still they are accounted for the complete day, but actually they have missed the session for that many minutes. Same way here we are trying to just visualize how if it would have looked if it had come on time. But this method does not solve my objective of visualizing the actual signal in reality. So I don't go with this incoherent method. So I go for something called as a coherent method where we will develop the transfer function, and if you are aware or you can recall, the transfer function has what? It has coefficient, A coefficients and B coefficients. Now take the transfer function coefficients, and we know it, even you people are doing in the DSP subject. If we ask you to do the convolution, see, it is nothing but when you have a transfer function, output is nothing but convolution of the impulse response of the transfer function h of n into x of n. But if I ask you to do the FFT, you will do it faster because FFT is what? It is just the multiplications you are doing. But in case if I ask you to do the convolution, it is taking time. Why? Because convolution is being implemented in time domain, but the same concept if I do it in frequency domain, it is just the multiplication. These properties you might have learned already in the DSP subject and even in the signal subject. So convolution in time domain is equal to multiplication in frequency domain. I can reduce the computational time by doing all the processing in frequency domain. So what do I do here? I will pick the inverse transfer functions coefficients of the space whatever I will be developing. Those coefficients will be multiplied by the FFT of the input. So now I have filtered, I have removed the dispersion whatever happened in the space. Apply the inverse Fourier and bring back the signal. You will get that x dash of n, which is almost equivalent to x of n what was produced in the actual scenario. So it is very simple, right? It is our own basics of whatever we are learning in signals and DSP. Just get the coefficients of the transfer function, multiply that coefficients with Fourier transform input data, and then apply the inverse transfer function of the inverse Fourier transform. You will get back the expected signal. Once I do this, you will get the de-dispersed signal. So the complete band, whatever we said, there is a dispersion happening for the signal. That dispersion has been completely removed now. Remember, again I am repeating, only for the band of signal what we acquired, or for the band of signal what we have developed our transfer function, not for the remaining part of the signal, or sorry, not for the remaining part of the frequencies. So we have the signals from the pulsar getting generated on all frequencies, almost all, in a wide range of bandwidth. But we are doing only for some particular bandwidth. Now once I have removed that, so these are the models which I have considered to remove the delays or remove the dispersions and get the de-dispersed signal. if you can check, you will be able to plot it, as I told you, time versus frequency, and this for every few seconds we will try to plot, not for the complete signal together, so that we can see it as an image and the pulse can be seen. You can notice this yellow color straight slanted line, as it is slanted. Even in the model I showed you, the slantedness will be there because higher frequencies are reaching on time or with little delay, lower frequencies are reaching delayed time, so it is receiving late. And on the left pane you will be able to see this RFI, because for the antenna to receive there may be other radio frequencies interfering our FM frequencies or whatever it is. So there are RFIs is what we are able to notice in the left pane. On the bottom pane it is the average of time, where you are able to see there is no peak because of the delayed acquisition of the signal. Now if I correct this and see, this particular segment tells we have over corrected it, so we will do all the corrections properly, and then you will be able to see how is the signal appearing. So if it is corrected, we will have the perfect peak as you are seeing here, both in the time averages and the spectrum averages. And then I will just show you the video how it happens, and then you can compare how was the signal in the raw data, how was the signal if you were doing that cheating corrections, how was the signal if you actually correct the signal with transfer function. This is the comparison of those three. Now what is the advantage of correcting with transfer function is your signal is with the highest resolution. It is as if the pulsar has produced the signal directly to our acquisition system. To that resolution is what we are correcting. So that is the advantage of implementing our inverse transfer function. Now here is the video of all the frames, where you can see after correcting I have taken the complete time duration of the recording. You are able to see exactly at the pulsating times you are able to get the peaks. Even in the image you are able to see, and on the time average you are able to see. Whereas the left pane, what is here is talking about the frequency average, and because the frequency is not varying much, it is almost constant, but the temporal average on the down pane is showing us how it is varying with respect to every pulse. Now I will show you how it was before correcting. This is the raw data before correcting. Here is that slantedness. Look at the time average. Actually the time average is almost seen as a noise signal. There is no pulse peak. There is no information about the pulses produced. So we don't have any information about the pulsar signal what has been given. Only after showing it as an image, somewhere we could find some yellow light slantedness. So we can tell yes, the pulsar signal is there. So that one, this is the another advantage. If it is not a strong pulsar with higher amplitude, we will not be able to identify on the temporal averages, but only on the image, just as an overview, we will be able to see. So this is about the raw data before doing the de-dispersion. Now you can get some information about what is the advantages and all, and if we have some RFIs and all which is troubling us, where we are not able to see itself. This is one example. A strong RFI is sitting, that is radio frequency interference. So this interference signal is such a way disturbing our acquisition, that was very high, so we were not able to see the actual frequency. So if we remove, we will at least try to get some portion. Of course this snapshot is not for the complete duration of one cycle of the pulse, so you're not able to see the pulse. If we continue with the video like how I showed you in the previous slide, you will be able to identify, yes, the pulse can be seen once you remove the RFI. Now I can just come back to the conclusions. We have understood the life cycle of the star. We understood how you can apply the signals concepts, DSP concepts, to remove the dispersion of a signal of a pulsar star which is staying in the space, and we are able to understand about the space. We are able to understand about the pulsar it's leftover time like this. Too many analysis we can do depending upon our interest. But remember one thing here, whatever the implementation we are talking, we are trying to relate to our signals and DSP concepts. So, and also removing the RFI. So here, if you want to try out some projects like that, means you can pick these kind of free data which is available, even implementing, removing the RFI, implementing that incoherent, just at least on the visualization level, developing a transfer function, developing transfer function for nth order, maybe fourth order is good, fifth order is good. You may be able to determine which order of the transfer function will do good for us. So these kind of things are also can be picked up as a mini projects, or it can be developed as your full final year projects. So I would like to acknowledge my guide who helped me in RRI to accomplish these tasks, who is Dr. Avinash A. Deshpande from Raman Research Institute. Hope you people like this particular concept of applying digital signal processing and signal sense system to an neutron star pulsar signals. Thank you, one and all.